Good morning. Happy Friday. So today I'm going to do something very, very different. I am going to start out with a clip from Tucker Carlson, actually two different clips. I'm going to start with a comment that Anna Kasparian is making on this show from yesterday, and then I'm going to go back and play a part of the earlier part of the episode where Tucker is speaking on his own about the relationship that the American people might have or might not have with and position that they have with the potential war with Venezuela. And I think that what she is about to say here is absolutely most relevant and pertinent to what he said earlier. And I'm bringing this up now because this is a huge part of the discourse that I want to shatter on X and on other platforms too. But we need to stop forcing ourselves to be divided among imaginary lines. We're allowing the same people that we're complaining about ruining our daily life, high cost of living, high expensive food, expensive health insurance, debating all the illegal migration, all the wars, everything that people are complaining about. We're allowing the people who create those problems to dictate down to us, okay? To dictate down to us what the political alignment is. And I just want to play these two clips, and then I'm going to talk about it briefly before moving on to the X feed, and I can even get into a little debate that I had online because I think all of this is relevant here. Let's play this clip.
Voice our support and cast our ballot for who we feel is best to represent us. So I just think there's something kind of interesting happening in the country right now that gives me a little bit of optimism, gives me a little bit of hope. People are starting to see beyond partisanship and instead kind of understand, okay, wait a minute, we're all Americans. It feels like a lot of the framing around partisan divides is completely manufactured and in fact is utilized by what happens if
Okay. Yeah. So that while this stupid ad plays, let me just say that is 100% what is going on.
to divide us and to distract us from the fact that our government is not focused on taking care of us.
That's the point. That is so important, what she just said. And this is why we have to all unite and realize that if you're a conservative, liberal, libertarian, communist, socialist, it doesn't matter what you are. If you have a problem, I've been saying this on this channel and I'm going to keep saying it. I think it's great to have principles, and I think it's important to have an ideology for yourself, a philosophy, beliefs, opinions, and we should all debate that, peacefully debate it. But there is something we have to recognize in 2025 that should have been recognized a long time ago. There are two clubs, or there are two groups of people. There's in the club and out of the club. And the people who are deciding for us the partisan lines are in the club, and the rest of us are out of the club. And that's why Tucker Carlson has Anna Kasparian on his show. These two people, Tucker Carlson is a traditional American conservative. Anna Kasparian is what I would consider a more traditional American liberal. Okay, neither one of these people would be in the same room typically on most issues. But what they are both realizing, and this plays back to something I'm going to play earlier in the show that Tucker said, is that there's in the club and out of the club, and the people that are attacking both of them, claiming that they are both anti-Semite and they're racist or whatever, simply because they have an opinion about foreign policy that doesn't align with the in the club power structure. They are realizing, oh, we're all part of the same group. We may have we wear different hats. We're all playing the same sport though. Different teams, same sport. Whereas the people who are running the show, they're not even in the league. They're not even participating. And that's where I want to tie this back to what he says earlier. Now to frame it, Tucker was talking about.
No one should be allowed to talk you into adopting their enemies as your own. There are tons.
Tucker is talking at this point about his commentary to Megyn Kelly about Venezuela. So he's like many, he is not in favor of intervention into Venezuela. He's not in favor of attempting to invade the country, attempting to overthrow it. The difference is, unlike maybe myself, who I don't take personal umbrage with Venezuela's government or their style of governing at all. Tucker is not a communist. Tucker's not a socialist. Tucker has no aspirations towards that. And that's okay. But what I'm hearing from Tucker in this clip is he doesn't agree with Maduro's politics. He may not even like Maduro, but he respects his right to govern, and he respects Venezuela's right to exist and govern on their own. Meanwhile, he also does not believe that the same people who are trying to convince us that we have to fight Iran for them are telling us now, oh yeah, you should hate Venezuela. Well, if you want to hate Venezuela, that's your prerogative. But I'm not interested in going to war over your hatred of Venezuela. And this is where he starts to say some things that I thought I'd never hear from Tucker Carlson. So let's just play this out.
Ton of people in Washington who think the single most dangerous person in the world, most evil person who's ever lived is Vladimir Putin. Some of them really think that. A lot of them are just getting rich by saying it, but a lot of them do believe it because I know them. I know they feel that way. It's sincere. But as a percentage of the country, what percentage of the country actually puts killing Putin at the top of its priority list? Like less than 1%. It's just not a problem for most Americans. Who runs Russia? But it's a huge problem in Washington. So Washington, for a couple of years there, succeeded in convincing the rest of us to either adopt their priority, Putin is the most important thing, we have to stop Putin, or shut up about it because if you don't, you're an agent of Putin. Basically bullied the country into accepting their list of priorities. And the election of Trump was really a refutation of that. It was tens of millions of voters saying, no, actually, our problems need a hearing. Someone needs to care about our problems. It's not just about you and your little parochial squabble. They're telling us now that Iran is the biggest problem we've ever had. And if you question that, like how many Americans have been killed on American soil by Iran as compared to the number, killed by Mexico, which brings all our fentanyl in, not Venezuela, Mexico, you get attacked as an agent of the mullahs. And the way to think about this is, who cares? Your priorities are every bit as important as Mark Levin's because you are a co-equal with Mark Levin because you're also an American citizen. He gets one vote, you get one vote. That's our system. So Mark Levin can scream at you all he wants and tell you must really care about affecting regime change in Iran. It is absolutely okay. In fact, it's your duty to say to Mark Levin, I don't really care. I can't afford my health insurance. Our leaders should solve that problem. And you'll be joined in that by like 150 million other Americans who agree with you, who can't find Iran on a map. They're not pro-Iran. They're not Shiite Muslims. But they have real problems and they want a hearing for those problems. They want someone else to care about those problems. That's okay. And it's interesting because people like Levin and Ben Shapiro, who at one point had this like media empire propped up by Facebook, the Daily Wire, with some good people on it, it's fine. It's fine. But Ben Shapiro spent, a decade posing as someone who actually cared about your concerns as an American. He did it imperfectly. There were flashes that he didn't really care. But he's like, no, I'm a conservative. I'm not just interested in the fortunes of one tiny country in the Middle East with a population of 9 million. No, I have a lot of interests. I really care about this country, and I'm against the trans movement or whatever. But increasingly, as everyone's gotten more hysterical and prone to sort of blurting out the truth, that veil has dropped and you can see what Ben Shapiro really, really cares about. So this is a very revealing exchange that took place 6 days ago, last Thursday, on stage with Megyn Kelly. Ben Shapiro was just sitting there being interviewed by Megyn Kelly and he said something like, well, Tucker Carlson's, for Maduro, the communist leader of Venezuela, who I guess we're on the way to killing or something, forcing out, regime changing him. And he defended Maduro. Didn't, actually. And Megyn Kelly says, well, Tucker said in his show that Maduro, most people didn't know this, whatever his many faults, I wouldn't hire him as an economist, okay? But whatever his many faults, has the most socially conservative country probably in the hemisphere. So Venezuela is just a fact. I mean, I didn't make this up. I'm not in charge of Venezuela. Just noticing that Venezuela has banned pornography, banned abortion, banned gay marriage, banned sex changes, and banned usury. You don't have credit cards with 40% interest in Venezuela.
I'm going to keep it going, but I just want to point that out. What did he just list there? So banned pornography, and I'm not, listen, I'm not anti-LGBTQ or anything. I'm not advocating for Maduro's policies. What I'm pointing out here, and I've said this on my X feed and I'll continue to say it forever. Communist countries that are aspiring to communism, countries that are actually socialists, led by real socialists, they are more conservative than any conservatives in the United States. Conservatism here is liberalism light. So for people who are in MAGA and who believe in traditional family values and who believe in conservative lifestyle, right? Like they like guns and they believe in going to church and they're against abortion and all this stuff. Venezuela is a country that would align politically, socially, culturally with you. The reason that you are not allowed to know that, and it's no different than China. China without the guns, obviously, But the point is, the reason that you're not allowed to know that about these countries is what? Because the people that are pretending to be the conservatives in this country are not really conservative. They have an aggressive foreign policy. They spend a lot of money. They don't stand up for any of the social issues that you agree with. Just like the people who are in this country who pretend to be liberal, the politicians, they're not really liberal. They're all in on government intervention in your social life. They use censorship not to prevent crime, but to harass their political enemies. None of them believe in the Constitution, so they don't believe in the rule of law for themselves, and not even the rule of law for you if it's like a law that might buck their system. Not to mention that unlike Venezuela, unlike China, unlike North Korea, unlike Vietnam, unlike all the other socialist countries, the real ones, the United States doesn't own its currency and is owned by a foreign entity. So what Tucker is pointing out, and this is amazing to hear, by the way, from somebody with a platform of almost 5 million subscribers, is a recognition that culturally, just culturally, you might want to take a second look at Maduro because he would be pretty popular on social issues and the way he runs his government in almost every red state in America. Let that sink in. You're not allowed to know that. You're not allowed to hear that because that would make all these fake Republicans look like freaking morons. Hey, wait a second, Ted Cruz. How come you don't stick up for these things? Hey, wait a second. All these fake conservatives. Hey, wait a second. And you know what these communist leaders, what these people in Venezuela and all these countries, you know what they don't do? They don't get involved in wars in Iran. They don't get involved in wars in Palestine. They actually stick up and do not use their military to do the same things that we use, but they also maintain the social conservatism. And by the way, I know he hit him on economics. I'm just going to throw this out there as a lifeline for some people. You have to understand that economically, these countries have been interfered with by the rest of the West forever. Okay? Forever. So just from the time of Bolivar, okay, these countries are never Cuba, same thing. All the blockades, all the sanctions, you're never allowed to just have free business and do business with these countries. The reason that we do business with China is because we used China as a factory for 30 years. And then suddenly we realized that they were strong and have a problem with them. Vietnam is the same thing. Okay? So don't ever get it twisted, all right? Don't ever lose sight of that. The reason that the communist countries that we have not interfered with to the extent that we have with certain other communist countries A, China's in a different hemisphere, and B, we've used them. Venezuela, we're not allowed to use them, and they're in our hemisphere, so it makes us nervous when we see Cuba and Venezuela being communist, and people actually saying, yeah, I may not be rich in your terms, but we actually agree with the government. So I'll let this go, but I wanted to point that out.
Okay. Ben Shapiro responded this way.
Tucker's made the point, I'm not going to here to be Tucker's defender, but he's made the point that Maduro is culturally conservative.
Who gives a shit? The guy's a communist dictator. Everyone in his country is eating dog. He's shipping fentanyl to the United States to kill Americans. Why do I give a shit whether he's anti-LGBTQ rights?
Who gives a shit? I do. I'm not moving to Venezuela. I'm not pro-Maduro. But I care about that. Why wouldn't I care about that? I've got kids. Like, first of all, I'm against abortion. Sorry, unpopular. I feel that way. I think it's really sad. I would personally become poorer to end abortion, voluntarily become poorer to end abortion in the United States. That's not a choice. Don't want to become poor, but I would because I care about it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're offended that I do, but I care about it. Lots of people care about it. I don't think pornography is good. That really hurts people. You know, I don't think pretending that the sexes are the same is good. And you claimed that you didn't think it was good, but it turns out, quote, I don't give a shit. Maduro's against Israel.
And there's the rubber meeting the road. A different kind of fake conservative, but a fake conservative nonetheless. He doesn't care about all of the things that are the backbone of culturally conservative people. Because if you apply it to Venezuela, it starts to embarrass him because you realize, oh, Maduro is authentically conservative. Ben Shapiro is not. Maduro is authentically conservative. No usury. No usury. You think that would help some Americans who are drowning in debt? You think it would help? So no usury, no porn, no sex changes for kids. I watched MAGA people, okay, and I have nothing against MAGA. I have nothing against Trump personally. But one of the core tenets of the last election was this argument about, hey, the LGBTQ stuff for little kids, the trans stuff for little kids, like sex changes in school, all that stuff, all that commentary, hearkening it back to Magnus Hirschfeld in the 1920s and 30s in Berlin, where the first sex changes were occurring in the 1920s under Hirschfeld and his sex change operation that he had, and that the Nazis were a reaction to that. Well, culturally, the fascists were a reaction to that, yes. But the fascists and the communists were a reaction to that. Okay? They were a reaction to that. But Ben Shapiro and MAGA, specifically the people of MAGA, voiced their concerns and voted for Trump in an overwhelming manner based on many things, and one of those things was the cultural stuff. So Maduro aligns with Trump on that. Why are we risking a global conflict over Venezuela then? What is the issue? What is the issue? But Ben Shapiro, he won't even discuss. I don't give a shit. He brushes it off because he doesn't want you to know. He doesn't want you to understand. He wants you to hate them blindly. They don't take the right position on Israel for Ben or for Mark Levin, for that matter, and Tucker is connecting it. And then he's going to say something very powerful.
Oh, okay. I don't give a shit. Well, you spent like a decade pretending you did give a shit, that you were on the side of like normal Americans who have a mix of concerns. They definitely care about economics and they care about social issues too because they have children and they see where this is going. It's not good. That your economic condition is not the only measure of health. Your spiritual condition matters too. It's just a fact. It does. If you're totally degraded, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting the whole world and losing your soul. Sorry. And most people feel the way, but not Ben Shapiro. He doesn't give a shit. So why the hostility? Well, maybe because if you keep talking about the so-called social issues, which are not limited to abortion and pornography and gay marriage, the trans issue.
Subscribe is how you stop it.
Hate YouTube with the ads. Give me old YouTube. Sorry.
They get pretty quickly to economics, to usury, to lending money at interest. And most people, including me, are not against lending money at interest, conceptually. But it depends on what interest rate it's being loaned at. So there are payday loans in this country that are 600% annually. 600% interest annually? And who's taking payday loans in this country? Well, poor people are. And they're never getting out of it. They're car loans. They're credit card loans. There's private credit. We used to call it loan sharking. At exorbitant rates. Rates so high that people will never get out from under them. They're enslaved by it. It's called debt slavery. It's 100% real. It's not an ideological point. It's just an obvious observation. And it was one of the observations that Charlie Kirk was making on a daily basis before he was assassinated, which is interesting. And it's that kids are buying.
Is there a connection between the people that are benefiting from usury, money lending, depravity in social culture, and the people that have the foreign policy that favors a war in Ukraine, favors the slaughter of people in Gaza? Is there any connection there? Are you starting to put it together? That's the in the club, folks. That's club politics. Tucker's not in the club. Maduro's not in the club. You're not in the club. I'm not in the club. But the people who have those policies that are all connected, it's all connected, they're in the club. And they need you to hate Venezuela, because if you don't hate Venezuela, if you don't hate Iran, if you don't hate China, what happens? You'll start to hate the club.
Food on credit. Buy now, pay later. That's credit. You're paying interest on that, whether they call it that or not. Late fees. People are loaning you money at a much higher interest rate than, say, rich people are borrowing money. And that's bad because it's really hard to get out of it. And if you're wondering why the average American homebuyer, American-born homebuyer, is almost 40 years old, when the year I graduated from college, it was 28, how did that happen? People are in too much debt. This is probably, if it isolated it in a world with a lot of issues, a lot of pressing issues, debt for young people is probably the number one issue, which is to say, it's the number one thing that is destroying them and making it impossible for them to get married and have children, which Ben Shapiro told us he cared about. And that's the conversation that they absolutely don't want to have. So if you say, well, Maduro, whatever his many faults, probably stole the election. Looks that way to me. I don't know, but it looks that way. People say he's bad. Okay, I believe you. He's bad. But he doesn't have that, and that's a good thing. And Ben Shapiro's like, I don't give a shit. Shut up. He's a communist. It makes you wonder how we're defining communist here.
Here it comes.
Because, of course, in the United States, communist no longer means someone who believes Marx and Engels. It has nothing to do with academic theory. That's all gone. Communist in the United States is a synonym for someone who seeks to rot a society from within and destroy it. And I guess I would argue that if you don't give a shit about pornography or 63 million abortions in the United States since Roe v. Wade or whatever, and if you don't care about 600% annual interest rates on payday loans being given to the poor, who's the communist exactly? Who's trying to rot?
Oh, just let me rewind that, because this is absolutely crucial what he's saying right here.
The election looks that way to me. I don't know, but it looks that way. People say he's bad. Okay, I believe you. He's bad. But he doesn't have that, and that's a good thing. And Ben Shapiro's like, I don't give a shit. Shut up. He's a communist. It makes you wonder how we're defining communist here. Because, of course, in the United States, communist no longer means someone who believes Marx and Engels. It has nothing to do with academic theory. That's all gone. Communist in the United States is a synonym for someone who seeks to rot a society from within and destroy it.
Meaning, just so we understand, what he's saying right here is that communist is used as a term. It's used as a term for someone who wants to rot the country from within. That's how the people that hate communism, that don't understand it, that don't want you to understand it, that's how they use that term in a derogatory manner. Okay? That's what he's pointing out.
And I guess I would argue that if you don't give a shit about pornography or 63 million abortions in the United States since Roe v. Wade or whatever, and if you don't care about 600% annual interest rates on payday loans being given to the poor, who's the communist exactly? Who's trying to rot this country from the inside? Who doesn't care about the destruction of human beings in our country? It's not me. You're a communist.
That's the whole thing. If you compare the communist countries and all the countries you're supposed to hate, and you look at their culture, and again, I'm not denigrating people who are more progressive or more liberal who disagree with Tucker on abortion or disagree on LGBTQ issues or pornography or any of those things. I'm not denigrating you. What I'm pointing out is the hypocrisy on the MAGA right side, the people who are trying to take over MAGA, especially in the wake of the death of Charlie Kirk, the people who are trying to take over MAGA. And I think this is something that young MAGA people are going to have to wake up to, and maybe they already have. Based on the polls, it looks like they're not happy with Trump at this point, but what are they not happy about? Are they understanding why? Okay? Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, all the people who sat in, Charlie Kirk's studio after his death, these people don't want you to know that the communist countries align more culturally with your conservative values than they do. And guess what that means? It means that these fake leaders of MAGA now are not really suited to be leaders of MAGA. They're hypocrites, and they want you to die for their hypocrisy. They want you to go to war and die for their nonsense. And why is that? Because they're in the fucking club. And the club has only one doctrine, and that's their own politics. And they will manipulate liberals. They will manipulate conservatives. They manipulate the populist movements. They do not care. Occupy Wall Street is the only real movement there has ever been, and it united the Tea Party, which is the precursor to MAGA. It united the socialists. It united liberals, hippies, everybody. You know why? Because they focused on what Tucker just talked about. They focused on usury. They focused on banking. They focused on things that are affecting everyday working Americans. And that scared the hell out of the power structure. So what did they do? They said, we got to get them off the Fed. We got to get them off interest. We got to get them off usury. Let's divide them up. The BLM movement, let's take that over. Boom. Focus on race. Focus on Iran. Focus on this, focus on that. You're not supposed to know that Afghanistan has a lot to do with growing opium. You're not, and you, by the way, you'd know that if you understood the history of the British Empire and how they manipulated the opium trade throughout that region in India and screwed over the Chinese through the opium wars. You got to understand, opium production dropped under the Taliban. Okay, it dropped, and then it spiked when the U.S. went back into Afghanistan in the 90s, and then when they took over. Okay, this is one of the main reasons that the U.S. hated and wanted to remove the Taliban in the first place. Now, does that sound very conservative? That's George Bush. Does that sound conservative to you? You think Iran is a liberal paradise? Again, I'm not saying be conservative, but if you're telling MAGA people die in Iran, die in Palestine, die in Venezuela, why? These places, maybe they don't agree with you on everything, and communists are not, communists are not capitalists, but we work with communists. Communists make all your medication. Almost everything you have in your house was made in a communist country. It's not made in America. Everything, the plastic that you buy, everything has plastic in it. Well, that comes from China. The electronic components, a lot of those are made in China. besides the actual electronics themselves? What are we talking about? Oh, he's a Marxist. You know who's a Marxist? You know who's a Marxist? President G is a Marxist. The guy who makes everything that's on your body, everything that you eat, everything you drink. A lot of that stuff comes from communist countries. What are we talking about here? Communism isn't the enemy of the working people in this country. Communism isn't the enemy of the people out of the club. The club is the enemy. And Tucker Carlson just said it. He said it a lot nicer than what I'm going to say it. But he just pointed that out. And Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and everybody who's in charge and everybody who's sitting in the club right now, they are absolutely concerned with dividing us and making sure we don't understand that fact. So I wanted to do this because I wanted to focus on this. I'll probably put out another video later about the XV news and all that, but I thought what he just said here yesterday to this audience was huge. And I hope that all people can unite to understand that the club is the problem, and it's not, and it's absolutely not Maduro, and it's not Iran, and that we shouldn't be getting ourselves killed or getting our children killed for absolutely no reason whatsoever. That's not what anybody voted for. And for those who didn't vote for Trump, that's not what they voted for. But if you're outside the club, if you're a party member of a party that is not Republicans and Democrats, you need to unite on common ground. There's plenty of common ground. And if you're just a regular person, you need to understand. This is the fight of the 21st century. It's not the battlefield. It's understanding what Tucker just said here. Don't get caught with the labels. Listen to what Anna said earlier. Don't get caught. They're just tools to divide you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.